Hi, I'm Sam, Commodore Sam, if you will. What I've got for you today here is a Commodore Educator 64. Now, this particular computer is a very rare computer, very hard to find. You might notice that it has some resemblance to a Commodore PET, and we'll talk about that a little bit. So basically, as you know, or probably know, in the late 70s, Commodore came out with the PET line, PET 2001, and then progressed through several versions of that. It was a fairly, I guess you would say, popular computer. At the time, it was heralded as one of the three big computers for the time, along with Apple and TRS-80, Radio Shack Tandy. Okay. And so all three of those were very popular and wound up in schools as well as in homes and used for personal reasons. So anyway, on those that wound up in the school, they did very well in schools, teaching programming and general computer skills. Really fast forward, a few years, the Commodore 64 comes out. Very popular computer. As we all know, maybe one of the most popular computers in the world, depending on whose numbers you believe. So those started showing up in schools as well. And that presented a small problem, or at least rumor says that it did. Rumor has it that those Commodore 64s were growing legs and walking off. Maybe also they weren't as durable, with the wires hanging out of them and everything else, right? To hook up the monitors, etc. And so rumor is that school administrations, teachers, really wanted a PET style computer back. And so Commodore, always willing to sell a computer, went in and basically chopped up their PET line, and which was half of it was already tooled and on its way out anyway. So they retooled the monitor and the case to fit a Commodore 64 into it, and that's what you have here. You basically have a PET case with a PET monitor and with a Commodore 64 inside and a Commodore keyboard, Commodore 64 keyboard, I should be specific. And so there you have the Commodore Educator 64. Now, a couple of things that we'll get into the internals and look inside. We'll talk about some of the other aspects of it, but let's jump right in, at least let you see what it looks like turned on. Now, I have a Kung Fu Flash cartridge in here just so that we can run a game, right? And so I'm turning it on at the switch in the back. And one of the first things that you're going to notice, and by the way, as you know, the Kung Fu Flash loads the last program it was on, which I believe was Ghostbusters. Yes. And so, as you can tell, it has a green screen. Again, remember I said it was the PET screen, right? And we've got Ghostbusters playing. You'll notice that there's some sound coming out of it, right? I'm gonna turn that sound down so that we won't be bothered by it. And so, basically, this particular computer, the Educator 64, did have a slight predecessor to it. There was an earlier model that was just called a 4064 or a PET 64. A lot of different variations, I guess, on name. But anyway, those earlier models did not have a multiple shades of green or grayscaling. They didn't have, a lot of them didn't have sound, didn't have a SID chip, etc. So they were very basic, very, very, very basic, stripped down 64s. Now, this particular model, the Educator 64, which was the later of this particular kind, in my opinion, the most desirable because of it's still a Commodore 64 and feature rich, right? So it does have sound. It does have multiple, quote, colors, right? Or shades of green. So it makes it a little more desirable. So I'm going to reposition camera angles here, and we're gonna look at this a little closer. So hang tight. Okay, guys, I'm back here and holding the phone in my hand, so hopefully we won't have too much shaking going on. But I wanted to be able to get some close-ups. So first thing you'll notice, like I said before, is it does have a Commodore 64 keyboard. Now this is the original keyboard that was in this machine. This machine happened to be really a two-owner machine, but the last owner had it since '85, so it really didn't last very long in any other person's hands. But anyway, you'll notice that one of the features besides the keyboard is they have this nice little educational sticker badge, if you will, on here that kind of told you some of the commands and attempted to educate you a little bit, right? And so just other angles. So I'm in my bedroom, so excuse anything you may see. But anyway, you'll notice that, again, same old pet look, but there is a volume control right here on this side. Really nothing else on this side. Now on the front, you'll notice right here, you've got the joystick ports and a headphone port. Again, you can imagine being in schools, they wouldn't have wanted all the computers making noise. So certainly that. And then over here on this side, you'll notice the more familiar 64 ports. You might also notice that it's in the same configuration as the back side of a Commodore 64. And there's a good reason for that, as you probably have already figured out. So I'm gonna turn this around, put the camera down, turn this around and come back. So I'm back here, and so here you can see the back side. The back, we've got the typical power switch and fuse and normal, PC power cord, right? You'll notice just like the pets, the case has a hinge, and you'll notice also on the label here tells us that it's a 4064. And remember, I mentioned that I think more than one model had that 4064 moniker. But besides the Educator 64, maybe the Pet 64 had that. I'm not sure about all the different models. Again, these, you don't see a lot of information about these, and I frankly haven't done a whole lot of research. All right, let's get this opened up. And I'm gonna put the camera down one more time. Okay, back once again. All right, so I went ahead and taken the screws out of the that hold the lid on, but basically underneath the front side, underneath the sides on both at the front, there are two screws, one here and one here, and those screws basically take and separate this plastic topped case, this hard plastic top case, from the metal case. And if you lift up on this here, you will see that it lifts just like a pet. And I'm gonna and it has a kickstand here. And the kickstand is used to prop the computer up. And so, like an old car, had the kickstand. And so just like all the pets, right? So anyway, unlike the pet, you'll notice that the insides look a little bit different. There's not the big, huge pet board that's normally in a Commodore PET. Instead, you have what looks strangely like a Commodore 64 board in here. Now this one happens to be a 4025, a 25425 board. Now my understanding is that there were multiple boards used in these, that Commodore often used their warranty boards. In other words, the boards that were sent back to them under warranty. They often fixed them and refurbished them and put them in these cases. And so more than likely, this was once in a bread bin. Now, case and came back. Now, what they did with all those bread bin cases, whether they reused them or not, I don't know. But anyway, so we've got this normal Commodore 64 board in here. You'll notice that there's wiring, going across here, a lot of wires. Almost looks like the inside of an arcade machine. And so you got this power supply here in the back that is supplying the power to both the board and to the monitor. You've got this sound board over here to the side, with the variable resistor, the volume knob pointing to the outside. And then you've got this little bitty dinky speaker that we heard earlier, mounted inside as well. And so all of these devices, the power, the sound board, all of that are wired or soldered directly onto the board. And if you took this board here and looked up underneath, you would see a bunch of solder points. So first of all, we got power, right? So this comes over and runs in and is soldered underneath and given power to the board. Then you have this wiring here that's hooked up to the board underneath and bringing the sound over here to this module, which then is of course wired into the little speaker and sending that. And then right here, this wire is the video signal that's going up the monochrome, I guess it's not really monochrome because it's is sending shades, but that video is going up into the monitor and giving it its signal. Of course, the power supply is also supplying from this little brown cable here. That's supplying the power to the monitor itself. The other thing that you'll notice, remember I pointed it out earlier, from the sound board, you're coming over here to this port here for audio, for headphones. Again, like I said, you'll notice that everything is laid out just like the normal Commodore 64. Now, one of the interesting notes about this, and if you get one and want to, it is a little inconvenient in some ways. So it's more convenient from a standpoint of it's all in one. There's not a bunch of cords going everywhere. Unless of course you hook up a bunch of peripherals, but at least you don't have monitor cords and power cord, a bunch of, a power brick all over the place, right? But one of the things that's kind of in my opinion, a little bit aggravating and a design flaw is you'll notice that the joystick ports are recessed. So you can put a mouse, a 1531 or 1351 mouse on here. And you can certainly do that, but as you remember, they have the little short stubby ends on those mice, and they don't fit very well in here because this is not flush to the front. So it's very hard to get them in there. Now joysticks work fine because usually most joysticks do. They usually have that narrower plastic end on them, and so those seem to fit in there well. But some of your other nicer devices that plug into the joystick ports don't easily fit in, and you almost have to have an extender or some other mechanism to extend that port out a little bit so that you can plug into. Kind of a little bit the same thing with some of the peripherals on the side. So when this case comes down, it protrudes out, about a half an inch all the way down this side. So if you have any kind of device that comes that's normally flush against the back side of the 64, it can be a little bit obstructed. Case in point, my Kung Fu Flash works just fine in this cartridge port because it's a very small cartridge. But my 1541 Ultimate 2 Plus does not fit well, because if you know that cartridge, it rises and's fatter on the back end, and so therefore it hits this plastic when that's closed. Another thing, also if you wanted to hook up like a RAM link or any other kind of big cartridge, you're probably going to have difficulty hooking those up to this without some method of extending this cartridge out. Now, what I did when I did hook the 1541 Ultimate 2 Plus on here is I used a 3 position expander card, and then port expander, right, and plugged it in vertically instead of horizontally. So you can do that. All right, and I'm going to show that here. I'm going to hold the camera angle a little bit funny, but if we put this back down and we close the lid, or the hood, if you will, you'll see that you've got this edge right here that makes it very difficult to plug something in with this overhang. So that's about it from in this session on the Educator 64. Very unique, very rare computer. Practical in a lot of ways. In fact, that's why schools wanted it, because it was more practical than the normal Commodore 64 was in the school environment. But in the home environment, it has some pluses and minuses. But this is a beautiful example. A lot of times you see things that have been in schools not look so good. In some cases it was the school themselves, carving the school's name into it, or painting or stenciling the name of it on there. So this one was really kept well, and it's still in good working condition and good physical condition. No label peeling or anything. So I have done no refurbishment on this at all. This is how I bought it, and I was very happy to have this piece of history. So anyway, as a first video on my channel, I know the production quality hasn't been up to many of the people that I follow, but I hope you got some education out of this from the Educator 64. Thank you, and have a good day.